While you're sitting comfortably at home, I am currently braving the crowds at the Los Angeles Auto Show. Fortunately, though, I was able to get my hands on the new 2024 Subaru Impreza in advance of the LA Auto Show, and here it is. It's Subaru's latest compact vehicle, but not a compact sedan anymore. The Impreza is now going hatch exclusive. If you want a compact Subaru sedan, you're going to want the new WRX. That is going to be available only as a sedan. This is only a hatchback. Up front, we see the latest Subaru design language, standard LED headlights in every trim. Speaking of trims, there's a bit of news here as well. We're going to have base trim, sport trim, and then we're going to have the new RS trim. Yes, RS has returned. There used to be one for the Impreza, and that former model also had a 2.5-liter engine under the hood. So if you want a bit more pep in your next Impreza, you want the RS trim. It definitely has a handsome and restrained design aesthetic, basically like we find in the rest of the Subaru lineup in America. Moving all the way around to the rear, we have the sort of lobster claw-like tail lamps here. These are combination LED elements, so the turn signals are still incandescent, and it looks like so is the backup light in there. I love the design of the Impreza because it's not outlandish, it's not polarizing, it's just solidly handsome. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section. Under the hood, we find your choice of two different engines. The base and the sport trim are going to get a 2-liter 4-cylinder boxer engine, basically the same as the one we found in last year's Impreza. It produces 152 horsepower. If you get the RS trim, we get a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder boxer engine producing 182 horsepower. If you want a turbo and you want to go even faster, then you really are going to want that WRX. The other big change for this year, no manual transmission exists in the Impreza anymore. It's going to be CVT only. Now the CVT is programmed a little bit differently. If you get the base trim, there's no 8-speed imitation mode, but if you get the other two trims, it will imitate an 8-speed automatic. We don't have any fuel economy numbers just yet, but based on the Impreza's history, expect this to be really good when it comes to fuel economy, even though all-wheel drive is standard. Why did Subaru go hatchback only? Well, it definitely fits the Subaru design aesthetic of being a bit more rugged, a bit more cargo practical than the sedan would. There's also the WRX if you really want a sedan. And then you have to remember that Subaru did not really sell very many Impreza sedans versus hatchbacks, because not only was the 5-door Impreza labeled vehicle better selling than the sedan, this is basically the same as the Crosstrek, and the Crosstrek is the best-selling Subaru in America currently. This shares the doors and most of the structure of the vehicle with that Crosstrek, so it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. And as a result, this has some of those more cargo practical features, like mounting points for roof load rails on there, and of course the big cargo area in the back. But as the more on-road focused version, the sport trim and the RS trim are going to get 18-inch wheels, and of course it's lower to the ground, but don't worry, all-wheel drive is still standard. I suspect the top-end RS trim and the mid-level sport trim are going to be the most popular versions of the Impreza, so let's talk about the difference here. We get blacked-out mirror caps on the RS and some slightly different accents. We get these shiny black bits right here on that section and the shiny black bit right there just above the fog light. Obviously, we get some RS badging, one on each of the doors, one on the rear, but interestingly, none on the front grille. Then we get the 18-inch black wheels that are essentially the same as the ones on the Sport, except that this has a machined finish to the outer portion of the wheel rather than the all-black finish. You can see the body-colored mirror caps there and the different accents on the front. Let me know what you think about the wheels. I think I like this design a bit more than the all-black. This electric Smurf Sport model has a body-colored spoiler rather than the black one that we find on the RS. And we don't have the lower black trim that we find in the RS. That gives this one a cleaner and a lower look without actually reducing the ground clearance. It basically just covers the pinch weld area just below the doors. Now let's check out the inside. The seats have a very similar design to the rest of the Subaru lineup. This top-end RS trim has a 2-way power lumbar support, manual tilt telescopic steering column with a pretty decent range of motion. Now obviously this is the top-end trim, so this is not what you're going to find in the base model. But what you will find is plenty of room in the back seat. This is one of the big advantages to a hatchback over a sedan in this segment, is that the roofline is consistently higher as it goes to the rear. So while I really wouldn't be able to sit upright in a Civic or a Corolla sedan, or really I had troubles in the previous generation Impreza as well, in here I could put my head all the way back to the headrest, and I still have about half an inch of headroom left. I can even squeak over here to the middle seat, still sit upright. My hair is now brushing the ceiling, but my head's not touching the ceiling. This is certainly more practical in the back than something like the Civic hatch because it really has a sportback-like profile. That's because with the Civic hatch, the roofline starts dropping right about here, and you end up having about the same kind of headroom as you find in the sedan in the end. Back here we have some USB charge-only ports, red accents everywhere, and this front seat's not all the way back in its tracks, but still pretty far back, and I still have about 2 to 3 inches of legroom left. Now, I don't have any official interior dimensions just yet, but expect this to be not too far off the current generation Impreza. Since Subarus are all about practicality, let's check out the inside with the cargo area first. And if you're catching any of the water sounds that are in the background, there's a fountain right behind me, so I apologize for that. We have a large, practical, and definitely square cargo area back here. I suspect it's going to fit about the same number of 24-inch roller bags as the previous model. No spare tire happens under the load floor. If I pop that open, we find some extra storage space, place for the can of Fix-A-Flat and the tire iron there, but I think if you wanted to put one in back here, you probably could because there is a mount point. There's a roller style cargo cover back here, and the rear seats fold in a 60/40 fashion. As we've seen in other Subaru models, the center shoulder belt comes out of the side of the vehicle, which is kind of an odd place for it. But I think that's actually a better place than coming out of the ceiling because it then goes through this little contraption right here on the headrest, which guides it around your shoulder. That makes the opening of the cargo area very square, and the buckle mechanism doesn't seem to take up any space in the cargo area. Now let's look at the inside. In this trim, we have a pretty standard sized moonroof over the driver and front passengers' heads. We have height adjustable shoulder belts for the driver and front passenger. Fabric seats with a bunch of different textures going on here. You can see this is kind of a crosshatch thing going on in the middle, red accents in there, gray bulk portion of the seat, and then larger red accents on the bolsters and around the seat bottom cushion. Now, if you get the sport trim, there's still a lot of red stitching going on, but less red generally. Moving on up to the doors, this looks very much like the rest of the Subaru lineup in terms of its interior design. We have a few more premium materials in here than we found in the previous Impreza, but keep in mind this is a vehicle designed to start not too far above $20,000. We have a soft touch upper section of the dashboard, lots of hard plastics lower than that. We have what appears to be a fairly large glove compartment right over there. The biggest draw for this interior is this enormous LCD in the middle of the dashboard. This is not exclusive to the RS trim. You'll find this also on the Sport trim. The base version is going to have a twin 7-inch system that we also find in other Subaru models, so still pretty impressive. This system features wireless smartphone integration. Then there's some physical buttons on each side. So for instance, the controls for the dual zone automatic climate control, those are physical toggles right there. And this system integrates the infotainment as well as the climate controls for the vehicle. Down below that, we have some USB inputs, a regular USB and a USB-C input. There's also an auxiliary input. That's a really handy touch because a lot of vehicles have actually done away with the auxiliary input. So if you don't have a smartphone or you want to use some other kind of media, you have that flexibility in here. We also have a really big wireless charging mat, so no problem fitting some of the larger smartphones in there, like that iPhone right there. And perhaps more impressively, it doesn't seem to have a problem charging through thicker cases, something that I really like. Moving down the dash, we have the traditional console shifter, manual mode back there. If you get the base version, it's just going to have an L mode. Heated seat toggles, very similar to what we find in other Subarus. 2 big cup holders, a 12-volt power port. I think that's a little bit oddly placed. There's a soft touch center armrest, pretty big storage area right there underneath. Then if we move on over to the driver's side of the dashboard, we find a small LCD right inside that analog instrument cluster. Of course, we have extra RS badging right inside the speedometer, red accents there just as you'd expect, and pretty typical trip computer information right there from that middle LCD. The round steering wheel should be familiar if you've been inside any modern Subaru. We have paddle shifters on the back and lots of buttons on the front. Over on this side, we have track forward, backward, volume up, down, some phone buttons, a button for the trip computer right over there. That little toggle toggles you through those different options. There's a source button, a voice command button, and then we have the buttons for the adaptive cruise control system over here along with the lane centering system. And then these buttons adjust essentially the drive mode. We have sharp and then we have the intelligent mode. The killer feature for the Impreza continues to be standard all-wheel drive, or really just all-wheel drive, period. Because if you want all-wheel drive in a compact vehicle that's a hatchback, you basically have this and you have the Mazda 3. And the Mazda 3 is going to be considerably more expensive, also considerably thirstier. And I know this is going to be controversial, but I think this is much prettier than the Mazda 3 hatchback. I always thought the hatchback looked a little funny in the rear. I think the Mazda 3 sedan is absolutely gorgeous and its front end is more attractive than this, but the entire package of that hatch, it's not exactly my cup of tea. Unquestionably, this is going to be more fuel efficient than that Mazda 3 hatch. I can tell you that right now, even without knowing EPA fuel economy numbers. But it's not going to be as fuel efficient, of course, as the hybrid Corolla, the only other all-wheel drive option in this segment. Weird twist though, for whatever reason, Toyota has chosen not to put the all-wheel drive hybrid system into the Corolla hatch, although there is of course that bonkers GR Corolla that will give you all-wheel drive. I'm really intrigued to drive the RS trim especially because this looks like it's going to be affordable fun with a practical cargo area in the rear. We do have 225 width tires, which surprised me a little bit. I had expected something a little bit narrower on the Impreza in order to really attain those high fuel economy goals, but they haven't gone in that direction. This does appear to be a solid middle ground between a regular Impreza and the new turbocharged WRX. If you want to know more about that, there's a review on my channel. And in the meantime, hit the subscribe button because hopefully I will be driving one of these over the next few months. So be sure and stay tuned for that. Hit the notification bell icon. Find me at Facebook, Twitter, all those other social places, blah, 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 blah. And if you've made it to this point in the video, congratulations. You win the award that you will receive by enabling that notification icon. See all of you later.